The council chamber loomed like a cavern of obsidian, its walls alive with slow pulses of alien bioluminescence. The gathered warlords sat in silence, each species wrapped in its own armor, scales, or fur, their voices quieted by the weight of the subject before them. At the head of the chamber, Commander Jorith Khan rose, his towering frame catching the pale glow of the chamber light. His mandibles clicked once, sharp and impatient. "The reports are consistent," he said, his guttural voice resonating through the chamber. "A new colony has taken root on the edge of the Halvan Belt. Humans again. Always humans." The name alone stirred a ripple of unease. Hardened generals who had conquered star systems, who had led campaigns across centuries, shifted in their seats. No other species carried such a reputation. Not for raw power, humans lacked the natural weapons, the biological enhancements, the sheer numbers of their rivals, but for something else. Something more insidious. Theron, elder warlord of the SYH Dominion, rose from his coil of scaled limbs, his eyes narrow slits of burning gold. "We warned you, Commander. One human is nothing. A human fleet, dangerous but finite. But a human colony, it is contagion." He spat the last word as though it tasted foul. Murmurs echoed among the council. They all remembered. Worlds scorched to glass only to be rebuilt by human hands, forests of toxic gas slowly reshaped into fertile plains. Every attempt to bury them seemed to nourish them instead. They arrive with nothing but scrap, another alien hissed. And within a generation, they hold fortresses where wastelands once lay. Their young multiply in hardship. Their dead feed their soil. Where others perish, humans thrive. Jorith Khan let the words settle. His compound eyes scanned the chamber, observing the discomfort of warriors who had never feared anything but now whispered of humankind as though speaking of an old nightmare. "Do you think them gods?" Jorith Khan challenged, his voice sharp with disdain. "They are flesh. They can bleed." Theron's lips peeled back, showing serrated teeth. "They can bleed, yes. But what they do with the blood is what makes them feared. Every loss makes them harder, every wound a lesson. Strike a human, and you create not submission, but resolve." The chamber fell into a cold silence. Jorith Khan allowed himself a low growl of frustration. He was a commander forged in campaigns of iron discipline and overwhelming force. He had crushed rebellions, scattered pirate fleets, burned out nests of resistance across the spiral arm. He could not believe the council of the most feared empires sat trembling over a handful of settlers. "Then let me be the scalpel that cuts out this infection," he said. "Give me a fleet, and I will erase their settlement before it takes root." The council stirred again. Some nodded, grateful for someone willing to face the threat. Others shook their heads, knowing too well that erasure rarely meant the end of a human foothold. Still, the pressure of fear pushed them toward action. Theron leaned forward, scales rasping against the stone seat. "You will lead the extermination, Jorith Khan. But remember this, if you fail, it will not be your name that becomes ash. It will be ours. The humans will spread, and every empire here will pay the price." Jorith Khan inclined his head. Inwardly, he welcomed the challenge. He had studied the humans in theory. Fragile bones. Short lifespans. Primitive biology. They were creatures of desperation, surviving only through crude ingenuity. He would show the council that fear was a sickness, and that humans could die like any other pest. But even as he accepted the charge, an old memory flickered through his mind. The scar across his lower mandible itched, a mark left by a human projectile decades earlier, during a forgotten skirmish in the dark edges of contested space. He had killed the soldier who fired it, yet the human had smiled through broken teeth as he bled out, whispering something in his crude tongue that Jorith Khan never forgot. "We'll be back." The chamber dimmed as the decision solidified. Orders were encoded, fleets mobilized. The alien war machine, vast and cold, began to stir toward the Halvan Belt. Far across the void, a barren planet turned slowly in the light of a pale sun. Hale's Reach, the humans called it. The surface was hostile, the air thin and scarred by storms, its soil poor and stony. No alien empire would have touched it, for it offered nothing of value. Yet in the shadow of jagged cliffs, Metal structures rose from scavenged wreckage, smoke curling from their chimneys, lights burning stubbornly against the darkness of night. And there, a man stood on the ridge, surveying the land as though daring it to defy him. His name was Marcus Hale, and the colony bore his name not by vanity but by necessity. Leaders of human settlements did not command from thrones, they bled with their people, worked beside them, fought to the last. His frame was lean, hardened by years of battle and labor. His face carried the weathering of storms, his eyes steady and unyielding. He had chosen this place not for comfort but for challenge. A world that would break most species was, to him, fertile ground for the future. Behind him, men hauled metal beams, repaired shelters, sharpened weapons. This was no fragile outpost, it was a seed. And seeds, Hale knew, grew best when buried deep in hostile soil. In the dark sky above, unseen, Jorith Khan's fleet cut through the void. Soon, they would descend. Soon, extermination would be attempted once more. And this time, as every alien feared in the silence of their hearts, the humans were ready. The storms came with little warning on Hale's reach. Winds howled through the jagged canyons, carrying fine dust that scoured exposed skin like blades, while lightning stitched across the sky in branching veins of white fire. Yet the colony endured. Metal walls, reinforced with stone, groaned under the pressure but held. Within them, men moved like an organism, patching leaks, carrying supplies, checking weapons as naturally as breathing. They had grown used to living beneath a sky that wanted them dead. Captain Marcus Hale walked the perimeter, boots grinding against the rocky soil. His eyes swept the barricades, every dent and scar in the steel catalogued with a soldier's instinct. He had fought in wars before, against human enemies, and the discipline remained in him like bone marrow. His men respected him not because he demanded it, but because he worked as hard as any of them. When a beam collapsed, he lifted it. When rations dwindled, he went hungry. When someone bled, his hands pressed the wound. A leader could not ask for loyalty without first bleeding beside his people, and Hale had bled often. Sergeant Elias Crow drilled the militia in the courtyard beyond the central shelter. His voice cut through the storm's rumble, harsh and unrelenting. Again, reset. You think the enemy will wait while you fumble with your rifles? The men moved with a weariness carved into their bones, but Crow drove them harder still. He was a man carved from scar tissue and iron, his skin crisscrossed with lines from old battles, his jaw square and unyielding. To him, the colony's existence was not a dream but a battlefield extended across decades. He believed, with grim certainty, that aliens would come. He had seen enough of them in war to know that humanity's expansion was never left unanswered. The recruits cursed under their breath but obeyed, for Crow's eyes carried no compromise. He had once been a soldier in the Terran frontier guard, dishonorably discharged for brutality. But brutality had its uses here, on a world that tried every day to kill its settlers. Hale had taken him in not because he trusted him, but because he knew Crow's kind was necessary, men who did not bend, men who met violence with greater violence. In Crow's philosophy, mercy was a weakness that would bury them all. Within the colony's makeshift laboratory, Dr. Adrian Kessler bent over a vat of thick green liquid. The air was sharp with chemical tangs and the faint copper of blood. He wore no protective mask, he trusted his concoctions to obey him, and if they did not, he was prepared to pay the price. Kessler was not a warrior, but something far more unsettling. Where Hale provided vision and Crow provided force, Kessler provided cunning shaped by science. He had studied the planet's fungi and bacteria, probing how they reacted to alien biochemistry. He spoke little of his results, but the gleam in his eyes suggested he had crafted more than medicine. When questioned about his work, he replied with unsettling calm. The soil is poison to us. Yet we live. Perhaps we might share that gift with our enemies. Men whispered about him, uncertain whether he was a savior or a monster. Hale tolerated him because colonies did not have the luxury of choosing only the comfortable. They required every kind of mind, even dangerous ones. The three men, Hale, Crow, and Kessler, rarely spoke as friends, but their alignment was unshakable. Each represented a face of humanity's survival, leadership, ruthlessness, and ingenuity. Together they had forged Hale's reach into more than an outpost. It was a fortress growing roots into the stone, a place that endured because endurance was its creed. That night, Hale stood with Crow at the outer wall, watching lightning fracture the horizon. The storms had passed, leaving the sky raw and silent. In that silence, Crow spat into the dirt and muttered, "They'll come. You know it." Hale did not answer immediately. His gaze traced the stars barely visible through the thinning clouds. He thought of the reports they had intercepted years ago, fragments of alien transmissions, hushed mentions of human colonies spreading like infection. He knew Crow was right. "They'll come," Hale said at last, his voice low. "And when they do, they'll see this isn't just a settlement. It's a promise." Behind them, the clang of hammers echoed, men reinforcing barricades, welding fresh plates scavenged from old mining equipment. The colony never slept fully. Even at night, lights burned, for survival was a task without pause. Kessler joined them, wiping his hands with a cloth stained green. "The perimeter sensors picked up anomalies," he said, his tone casual, though his eyes betrayed a quiet intensity. "Not storm interference. Something higher. Orbital signatures, perhaps." Crow's jaw tightened. "I told you. They're coming." Hale nodded, absorbing the weight of the moment. There was no panic in him, no fear, only the steady acceptance of inevitability. He had prepared for this since the first stone of the colony was laid. Every mine tunnel, every storage cache, every hidden weapon was part of a design meant for this day. "Then we're ready," Hale said simply. Crow's lips curled into a grim smile. "Ready? No, Captain. We're hungry." The words carried through the air, settling like iron into the hearts of the men who overheard them. Hunger, not fear, defined them. The hunger to live, to expand, to turn even war into fuel for growth. In the distance, far beyond the sight of human eyes, the alien fleet crept closer, engines silent against the void. They came to burn Hale's reach, to cauterize the infection before it spread. But within the colony's walls, 3 men stood prepared, each a facet of the force that made humanity the terror of empires. The storm had ended, but something far greater was about to begin. The alien fleet entered orbit like a storm of steel. Their ships blotted out the stars, angular silhouettes glowing with the pale fire of engines. From the surface, the settlers of Hale's Reach could see the sudden distortion in the night sky, faint streaks of light cutting across the darkness as dropships descended. For men who had labored years under storms and hunger, this was no surprise. It was the inevitable arrival they had whispered about in restless nights. Captain Marcus Hale stood at the outer barricade, wind tugging at his coat, eyes locked on the horizon where burning streaks cut through the clouds. His men looked to him, some pale with dread, others grimly eager. Hale raised his voice, steady as stone. "They've come to kill us," he said. "So we'll show them why a human colony never dies. Hold your ground. Every second you buy is a second we grow stronger. Every drop of blood they take will cost them tenfold." The words settled like iron. The militia tightened grips on their rifles, checked the crude explosives strapped to their belts. Behind them, smoke rose from hidden pits where Kessler's biochemicals brewed. Hale did not promise victory, he promised survival, and survival was enough to make men fight like demons. The first wave hit the surface with a thunder that shook the earth. Alien war machines, sleek and armored, marched from the drop bays, their weapons glowing with cold light. Commander Jorith Khan strode among them, mandibles clicking in anticipation. He expected resistance, but crude resistance, easily broken. This was extermination, not war. What met him instead was fire and stone. Mines buried in the sand erupted beneath the first ranks, hurling metal and flesh into the air. From ridges above, human marksmen unleashed storms of bullets, crude projectiles punching through alien armor at weak points no one expected them to know. Storm winds, channeled through carved canyons, carried dust thick enough to blind alien optics while humans, masked and prepared, moved like shadows through the haze. Sergeant Elias Crow led the first counterstrike. His men emerged from hidden tunnels, knives and shotguns in hand, striking the disoriented aliens with brutal precision. Crow himself fought like a man possessed, his blade tearing through gaps in armor, his rifle blasting at point-blank range. He barked orders between every shot. No hesitation. No mercy. Leave their bodies where they fall, make the bastards trip on their own dead. The aliens faltered. This was no panicked rabble but a force that had studied them, anticipated them. Every step forward became a trap, every attempt to regroup broken by ambushes. And always, the storm. Lightning cracked overhead, thunder rolling so violently it drowned alien commands, while humans used the chaos as cover to vanish and strike again. Jorath Khan's eyes widened behind his visor as reports poured in, casualties climbing, formations broken. He snarled, ordering heavier weapons, orbital bombardment if necessary. Yet even as he adapted, so did the humans. Dr. Adrian Kessler stood behind the barricades, watching as canisters were released into the storm. A faint green mist spread, carried by the wind toward alien lines. The first to inhale it staggered, their bodies convulsing. Kessler had engineered the spores from native fungi, tuned them to alien physiology with surgical precision. What was poison to one species was harmless to another. To humans, it was nothing. To the invaders, it was rot made flesh. Kessler observed with cold detachment, murmuring to no one in particular. They breathe in death, and it roots in their blood. By dawn, their corpses will be soil. He made no gesture of triumph, only calm notes in his ledger. To him, it was not cruelty, only efficiency. The battlefield became a nightmare of sound and color. Alien war cries turned to screams as men like Crow drove into their flanks with savage ferocity. Hale directed from the ridge, his commands measured, his mind seeing the battle not as chaos but as a map of opportunities. He moved units like pieces on a board, opening corridors for retreat before sealing them with explosives, ensuring that no fight was wasted, no life thrown without return. Still, the aliens pressed forward. Their superior numbers and technology forced humans to retreat deeper into their defenses. For every squad wiped out, another landed from the sky. Jorath Khan roared, his voice amplified through comms. Press them. They are only men. Break them. But Hale's voice carried softer, deadlier, through his lines. They think we're only men. Show them we are more. Crow answered with another ambush, his men detonating fuel tanks as aliens passed, engulfing entire formations in fire. The screams carried on the wind, and even hardened settlers shivered at the sound. Yet Crow did not flinch. He wiped soot from his face and growled, "Fear is a weapon. Make them choke on it." Night deepened. The storm raged louder, green spores spreading further. The aliens adapted, deploying sealed helmets, but by then too many had fallen. The ground was littered with twisted shapes, metal glowing red-hot, flesh unrecognizable. And through it all, the humans endured, blooded but unbroken. Jorath Khan stood amid the carnage, chest heaving. This was supposed to be simple, swift. Instead, it felt like quicksand. The harder he struck, the more resistance grew around him. For every human killed, two more seemed to rise. Their colony was not collapsing, it was transforming, each blow shaping it into something harder, sharper. At dawn, when the storm finally broke and sunlight bled across the cliffs, the battlefield lay in ruin. Alien corpses blackened the ground, their armor cracked, their weapons abandoned. The humans, ragged and weary, emerged from their defenses, rifles in hand. Crow dragged a prisoner forward, a captured alien still reeling from the spores, its breathing ragged. He threw it at Hale's feet. They'll talk. They always talk when they see what waits for them here. Hale crouched, meeting the alien's unfocused eyes. His voice was steady, quiet enough that only those closest heard him. You'll tell your commander what you saw. You'll tell him why we don't die. And when you return, you'll carry our fear with you. The alien shuddered, not from pain but from something deeper. Kessler approached, his hands still stained green. By the time they understand, it will be too late. The spores are spreading through the soil now. This land is ours. Their blood is fertilizer. Hale stood, surveying the smoldering horizon. His men watched him, waiting. He gave no cheer, no promise of victory. Only a single command. Prepare for the next wave. They haven't begun to understand what it means to face a colony. And above, the alien fleet stirred again, regrouping, their commander burning with fury. The battle was not over. It had only begun. The ruins of the battlefield still smoldered when the second assault began. From the cliffs of Hale's Reach, men could see the alien fleet adjusting orbit, shadows moving across the pale dawn sky. Dropships descended again, this time slower, more deliberate, armored against the crude traps that had destroyed the first wave. Commander Jorith Khan had learned from his humiliation. He meant to erase not just a colony but the shame seared into his name. Captain Marcus Hale stood on the wall, eyes narrowed against the wind. His men gathered around him, exhausted, blooded, but unbroken. They had buried their dead at dawn, shallow graves marked with stones. In other wars, such loss would break morale. Here, it hardened it. Every grave was a reminder of the promise Hale had spoken the night before, the promise that their blood was not wasted but invested in survival. Sergeant Elias Crow checked his weapons with quiet fury, his face set in a grim mask. He had watched too many of his recruits die, torn apart in the first night's chaos. Rage burned in him, but not the kind that clouded judgment. His rage was fuel. He tightened the strap on his blade and muttered, "They think they've seen us fight. They haven't seen us hunt." Dr. Adrian Kessler emerged from the laboratory bunker with 2 canisters cradled in his arms. The liquid inside glowed faintly, swirling like something alive. He placed them at Hale's feet with a calm that unsettled even the hardest soldiers. "Their reinforcements will not survive contact. This world is rewriting itself, Captain. They don't belong here. We do." Hale studied the canisters, then his men. He did not speak of victory. He spoke of necessity. "We hold the walls, we bleed them, and when they break, we take everything they leave behind. Remember this, a colony is not a fortress. It's a seed. And seeds spread." The alien assault came with thunder. This time, artillery pounded the barricades, plasma fire tearing chunks of steel into molten slag. The earth shook under the tread of walkers, massive machines bristling with weapons. Jorith Khan marched at their head, his voice carrying across comms. "Crush them. Leave no stone standing." But as the barrage fell, the walls did not shatter. They flexed, groaned, but held because Hale had built redundancies into redundancies. Every beam reinforced by another, every plate angled to deflect. And when gaps finally tore open, humans did not retreat. They surged forward. Crow led them with a roar, charging through fire and smoke, his men at his heels. They slammed into alien lines with feral precision, blades and shotguns tearing into soldiers who had expected defenders cowering behind walls. Crow fought like a storm-given flesh, every movement brutal and efficient. Blood sprayed across his face, but his eyes burned cold. He laughed as he carved a path, not from joy, but from the certainty that this was where he belonged. Above them, the storm thickened once more, not of weather, but of spores. Kessler's concoctions burst in canisters along the front, green clouds rolling across alien ranks. Those who inhaled stumbled, their movements slowing, joints locking as invisible roots took hold inside their veins. They died not with screams but with silence, their bodies collapsing into twitching husks. Kessler watched without flinching. To him, this was proof of his philosophy: life and death were tools, nothing more. He murmured as he observed, "From their ruin, we cultivate. From their end, our beginning." Hale directed it all, his commands precise, his eyes never leaving the broader field. He saw not just the enemy but the future unfolding. Every alien weapon captured was already repurposed, their dropships stripped for parts before the battle even ended. Where others saw wreckage, Hale saw foundation. This was the heart of humanity's terror. They did not merely survive destruction. They thrived on it. The aliens fought desperately, their superior machines grinding forward, but with each step they bled. Their lines fractured as tunnels collapsed beneath them, charges detonated at perfect choke points. And when Jorith Khan pushed deeper, thinking he had cornered the defenders, Hale's trap closed around him. From hidden ridges, concealed artillery scavenged from mining rigs opened fire, tearing through alien walkers. Explosions lit the battlefield, turning night into day. Jorith Khan roared, striking down humans with his blade, but the tide did not break. Crow himself came for him, their clash brutal, steel against alien chitin. The sergeant fought with no thought for survival, only to inflict as much pain as possible. He slashed across the commander's face, reopening the scar from decades before. Jorath Khan staggered, realization dawning that this was the same fury he had seen long ago, the same smile behind broken teeth. Before the killing blow fell, Kessler's spores thickened, forcing the alien commander to retreat, gas searing his lungs even through filters. He stumbled back toward his lines, his men collapsing around him, while humans pressed forward with relentless hunger. At last, the fleet above signaled retreat. Dropships scrambled to evacuate survivors, their engines burning as they clawed toward the void. The battlefield fell into silence, broken only by the crackle of fire and the steady tread of human boots. Hale stood among the ruins, his coat torn, his face streaked with soot and blood. Around him, his men gathered, ragged but alive. Crow spat into the dirt, wiping his blade clean. "They'll be back," he growled. Hale nodded. "Good. Let them come. Every time they return, they feed us. Every weapon they drop becomes ours. Every body they leave behind becomes our soil. They think they can starve us, burn us, bury us." He turned toward the graves lined along the ridge, then back to his men. His voice dropped, iron beneath the calm. "But a colony doesn't die. It grows." Kessler stepped beside him, his gaze on the green haze spreading across the valley. "In 100 years, this world will be fertile. Children will run where their armies fell. And the bones of our enemies will be its foundation." The words carried into the silence, settling over every man present. They did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They simply stood taller, because they knew what they were now. Not survivors. Not defenders. Something far more dangerous. Far above, aboard the retreating flagship, Jorath Khan collapsed into his command chair, his body racked with pain. His vision blurred, his chest burned, but his mind was clear. He would carry this story back to the council. He would tell them what he had seen, that humans were not pests to be exterminated, nor rebels to be crushed. They were contagion. Every attempt to kill them only nourished them. In his last coherent thought before darkness claimed him, Jorath Khan understood the truth whispered by every commander who had ever faced humanity. And that is why every alien fears a human colony.